Okay, 7 o'clock, we're gonna go ahead and get started, so I'll call the meeting to order.
I'd like to disclose I'm recording the meeting for references and clarification.
Okay,
Certify that there is a quorum of the board of directors here. 4 out of 5, Lenny is not present.
that is,
And we have certified that the meeting notice was posted in accordance with Florida statutes, posted at the entrances and at the pool. And we are ready for pledge of allegiance.
yes. Pledge allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, minutes. Anybody have any changes, updates to the minutes? I've got a couple of things. So, under the president's report,
Let me
we'll
check.
talk about the blue reflective brake pads. I thought I had asked you to get those, but don't worry about it, because I ordered them
Oh.
on Amazon.
Okay.
Once they come in, I'll coordinate with you, maybe access maintenance and
Install them.
come out and install them, we'll try to figure
Do you want me to do it then?
No.
Okay.
And then, shortly after that, American Night, it's just KNIGHT.
Oh,
And then that, last bullet, discuss the recent security incident. I was just trying to clarify what that was referring to. She reported that the current security contract with Vera
it's
expired.
supposed to be a E.
Okay. Okay. And I believe that was it.
I don't know if you wanna make reference for the director's report that information is down in the old business section under Vera.
Oh, like, okay, you want me to say director said? Okay.
Anybody else?
The only other thing would be down in old business, instead of my Vera, it's my Invera, to minimize issues.
Yeah, I guess that's the AI that's maybe chopping it out when it does the recording.
At the bottom of old business, on the right hand
Yep.
side.
Oh,
Second to last one.
got it. Okay.
Okay, so I'll go ahead and make a motion to, approve the minutes with those changes.
I'll second
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay.
Okay. My manager's report, we just went over the irrigation inspections for Yellowstone. They installed the annuals, they completed a lot of work for you guys. Cleaned up one tree rung and turf at main entrance, cleanup has begun of all branches piled up and left behind from Florida landscape. Mowed, edge, string trimmed, and blow off the entire front of the property and pool. The Rosalini palm trimmed at the pool area, Indian hawthorns along the fence of the pool were cut back to give fence vendor more room to do the work. Your RFP for the painting were sent to Harrison Contracting, Access, Escamilla Painting. I also added Vice Painting and Jameson Painting. The sports courts were sent out to the RFP for Diamond Solutions, DMI Paving and All County Paving. Your sidewalk RFP were sent to the same ones. I did contact Nitty Sports, for the sports courts as well. I'm waiting for a return call back from them. Inspections were May 15th and May 29th. And that is all
Billstone also provided us, I forwarded the message, I think on the 18th, for their design renderings of what we may want to do with the front entrance, as far as landscaping and stuff like that.
Yep, I put it in the meeting packet.
Oh, thank you. Sweet, thank you.
Before we go too much further, did you certify the meeting notice was posted? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't hear it.
Okay. Lenny is not here for his report.
He did send a text message saying that, excusing himself because it's his granddaughter's 18th birthday, but he said that he looked at the finances and they looked pretty good there. Those were his
Okay.
words, but that he would catch up next month.
Okay. Okay. Director report?
I don't have anything.
Secretary?
One of my neighbors approached me and asked what to do about getting a new garage door, and, he said he couldn't find anything in the ARC guidelines specific to garage doors. So I went out and I did a little research on the type of garage doors that we have in the community, and I did a small report, which I'm submitting, also tonight, about the type of doors that were installed, and they're basically traditional steel doors, although aluminum are available and they're in a certain pattern. There's a lot of variety out there, but the ones we have, I guess, were the cheapest ones they could install at the time without insulation or anything like that. That's in the report, and I guess something's gonna have to be added to the guidelines on that, garage doors.
Okay. Vice President?
I don't really have much.
I got a question for you.
Yeah.
When you did the research on the Seco, light poles,
Yes.
I guess there's a provision where we can scale down on the number of poles throughout the community.
That was my understanding.
Okay.
We can reduce, we can remove, and we disconnect.
Okay.
Those are really the options that we have.
Okay, if you could do me a favor, check on like disconnecting, because, so for instance, on my block, I can see where we could, almost every other light, so to say. We'd still continue the streetlights at the intersections, which is probably the most important. But then if we just disconnect, we can see how it turns out. And if it turns out and it's cost savings because they don't have to maintain it, and we don't have the energy costs associated with it. I think we had talked before about the fact that it's not that the energy costs are that high, it's the maintenance of the poles and everything, and what they're charging people. So, but yeah, if you could just find out a little more about that.
Yeah, what was that, a 300% increase over?
It's gonna be 600.
600% increase over 2 years?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely.
Okay.
Did we
Yeah.
ever get any information on what it might be to convert those existing ones to solar?
So, there's not really a conversion option for the types of lights we have. You would essentially remove and then replace, which would be either a lease term over, you would purchase new ones and lease them, similar to how we are essentially doing it now. There's a lot of options out there. A lot of the newer communities, I think the one that's right next to us actually has the new Dream Finders homes that are, they have solar lights that are, so there are options that we can look at, but you wouldn't convert the existing ones. Because they need batteries, need solar, all of that has to be put in. These are just direct hooked up to underground utilities, is actually. That is an option. I mean, these are older lamps, but I think we have 73 total in the community.
I think it was 63.
63?
Yeah.
So it's a significant amount of them, and I would argue that I agree with you, lighting the
think it was an opportunity also for homeowners that were interested to have, to take over, streetlights that are joined into their property. They're
On their account.
on their account. They're, we would wanna consider sending out an email blast to the community and find out if there's any neighborhoods that are interested in sending the light fixture at their, I mean, as opposed to,
I think it should be shared amongst the community, because it's,
you know,
you know, it's a shared amenity, more or less, or utility, I guess, is really what I would think of it. I don't, there's one right in front of my house, and it's probably a large halogen bulb. I wouldn't want that one,
yeah.
personally.
Yeah, I think the other concern would be if Seco got wise to it and said, oh, okay, we see what's happening. Residents are
Battery is
taking over.
low. Power saving mode activated.
Residents are taking over the community, the HOA. Then they jack up the rates on residents as well.
I think it's just better to consider reducing the number of lights and seeing if that produces savings. I don't see it as a good idea, you know.
Well,
Don't tell owners, hey, if you wanna take over this light, I mean, are commercial rates the same as residential rates?
No, I think Elliot had reported previously that it was substantially less.
Right.
But, yeah, it's not,
I think the best way is to do a whole replacement reduction.
Yeah, well, if we do the reduction, we can always change it back if it's a problem, if it doesn't work out. But in the meantime, at least we'd be able to, cut some costs.
Yeah, absolutely.
President, report.
Okay, so, Yellowstone Landscaping, I think has been doing a great job. They gave us a bid, I guess it was a little over a month ago, for tree trimming and, also removing some trees. We're getting more bids on the, removal of the trees, but their arborist did come out, pointed out what trees, why they need to be removed. The whole front entrance, I'm sure 20 years ago looked great with all these small trees, but now, it's just inundated, and the trees have grown, and some of the magnolias are getting choked out by the, oak trees and stuff. But they're starting, tomorrow with the tree trimming of the common areas, weather permitting. And we did get another, quote for tree removal from Floralon as well. So we'll look at that. That just came in today.
It's at the back of your guys' packet.
Yeah. So we'll do a side-by-side comparison just to see. That was the largest cost of the contract. The back pedestrian gate is operational now. You have to have a key for exit and entry through the south side gate. So as you're driving out of the community, the gate on the left is the one that is keyed on both sides. And the gate on the right, or the north side gate, is now secured. And there's a sign on there saying gate secured. And if you need a key, contact Access Management, put in a request through Vantica, to get the key. And Yellowstone also suggested trimming, the Podocarpus hedge around the pumping station on Majestic Isle Drive. And did that end up in the package as well?
I don't think so.
Okay. I know Steve had sent us a picture of it, but they're like 12 feet up in the air, and he suggested trimming them back to, about the 9-foot mark, which is roughly the height of the fencing around that pump station. So we'll probably go ahead and do that. I'll send out something, just to get your opinions on that. And then we, replaced the caution sign on the front exit gate. That was peeling mostly due to, all the sun exposure, and then I'm sure, when they do the pressure washing, that kind of loosened it up a little bit. But the new sign is actually painted onto, the paint is, their letters are painted onto the sign, so we shouldn't have any problems with them peeling. And then we had a request from a realtor, last week, was having an open house on June 21st to have the entry gate set to open. And I want to emphasize the fact that open house is different than a lot of other situations where, if somebody wants to see a home and they contact the realtor, the seller, they can arrange for a time and they can get put in Embarrass system for all that. But when you're doing an open house, some of what you're attracting is the drive-by community that just happens to see the signs for an open house, and, they pull in, so that's why the gates were open. We had some message traffic on the unofficial Regency Hills residents only page, criticizing the board for having the gates open. But again, it's because it was an open house and not a normal realtor type situation. And it is ironic that, the homeowners that complained the most were the Neelix. And I point this out because last year, Vinny had asked me to have the gates open for a meeting at the Cabana that was they were inviting people from other communities around us to come in, and we opened the gates for that. Plus, we also have yard sales twice a year, so we have gates open for that. So this was more of a, let's just try and slam the board, for, doing this. We're not always gonna agree on, what should be done and how it should be done. But in this case, it seemed perfectly normal because it was an open house request, and that's different. We had somebody else post that, when they requested the gates be open for a wait that they were having for a relative. Well, that's a situation where you can notify people and tell them, hey, when you get to the visitor's gate, just tell them, here's our address, you're coming to see us. Again, the open house is just that drive-by traffic that's unexpected, that you can't do anything about. And there's a lot of hate and discontent being voiced out there on the Facebook pages. And, it's a shame because we all live in this community. These are our homes. And, to not be able to get along, we can have disagreements, but we don't have to have it in the way that it's been lately. And there's just been a ton of stuff out on the Facebook page bashing not only the board, but also access management. And much of it has been misinformation. And I'll be talking about that some more later on in the meeting.
Okay. We're going on to the committee reports for the ARC.
One open request, haven't looked at it yet.
Okay, and for the finding?
You
Oh,
suspended.
that's right, sorry.
Time out, very
Time out. That is my fault, I will take that.
Issues up on things.
Okay, back to pedestrian gate status, I already talked about that.
I'll look to try to push for that third one. But this is what we have so far, which they seem to be right in the same ballpark for pricing.
Okay. Yeah, I think the sidewalk repairs should probably take precedence over the others, priority over the others, just because that's a potential liability issue.
But we don't have quotes back for those yet, do we?
No, not yet, that will be next month. They got sent to Diamond Solutions, DMI, and All County Paving.
We need to move on.
Diamond was already out this week, looking at the sidewalks to get us a proposal.
Cause we're gonna have to, Mike and I are gonna have to go through all that again and respray it all again, 'cause where we marked it, it's already worn off.
All County Paving did speak with me today too. They had just a question on, the differences between the sports court and sidewalk, so they're gearing up to come out hopefully next week. So hopefully they'll be in touch with me, and they were asking for address.
And you can let us know when they'll be there. so we can meet them.
All right, so just so you're tracking, we got the sidewalk repairs is higher priority.
Yep.
The proposals or the quotes for the painting, one of them is good for 60 days from the date of the estimate. The other one doesn't have a date on it. So depending upon when we bring this up for a vote and execute on that, we might have to do a proposal again.
Just, we would call and get past them and
Yeah,
make sure that pricing.
I'm just saying, just so we're tracking,
Yes.
there's a clock on how long those are gonna be.
Okay. Yellowstone tree trimming of common areas. We
Yep.
discussed that.
Yep.
Anything more on that?
No, they'll start tomorrow.
Okay. And then the new business is the Yellowstone design proposal for the front entrance, which is also in your guys' packet. But I didn't see a number on it, so maybe you have the number?
No, what they're doing, they're kind of giving us, here's,
Those are renditions.
yeah, they're renderings of what they're proposing, but they've given us different options, and they've explained what plants they are and stuff like that. But what we'll do is we'll go through and pick out what we think is good. For instance, some of the stuff that they do in front of the monuments and up the entrance driveway are good. But then, there's a picture in here somewhere where it shows, some stuff along the, street. And I don't think we need to do a bunch of stuff, up and down the street outside of the front gate area. So we're really going more for the, aesthetically pleasing entrance versus, but we also won't do anything until all the, tree removal's done. So that'll hold us up for that.
Okay.
The, just out of curiosity, the renderings for, like going up the entrance on the right and on the left, are they talking about thinning those trees, removing any trees, or?
Well, they're removing 4 oaks. What the proposal is right now is, 4 oaks that are being, laurel oaks that are being removed, and the arborist pointed out that the.
That's where they're removing it?
Yeah,
Okay.
the laurel oaks, have like a 20-25 year life expectancy, and then they start to have problems. So he suggested removing those. That'll create some more light in that area, entrance area, so that maybe we have a better chance of getting some grass to grow. And then he's also also got, a number of the, magnolias that are,
5 of them.
well, there's 5 at the front entrance. And then there's 3 of them that are over at the, pool area. That are not in the best shape, getting crowded out by some of the trees and stuff, the oak trees. You know, the arborist was careful not to want to, let's just chop, chop, chop. It's more of a, here's why we would remove these trees, for the sake of the others.
Are the trees highlighted, which ones they were proposing to remove in here?
Not in the renderings.
Not in the renderings.
They didn't focus on that. Yeah, that was 2 separates. But yeah, I'll get a map so we can, identify.
It's 2 oak trees on each side of the entrance.
Yep.
And then they're gonna give us a quote
Yep.
after we come back with, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we can pick and choose, what options. And they've got everything in here, including, some of the work that could be done inside the pool area as well.
I gotta say, the renderings look way better than the front entrance looks today, so.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
would be a nice change.
It's like 3 things that they're doing. One is the tree trimming, which is here,
Yeah.
okay, which needs to be done before the hurricanes. Then is, the removal of the trees that need removing, and that would come before any landscaping work is done. So it's like a 3-stage project. So these renderings are, what, a few months down the road in terms of execution, no?
Yeah.
And the removals would come, when did he say? Well, they're gonna submit a bid with everything, yeah. But they wanna get what needs removed and grind down the stumps and everything and smooth it out. And then remove all the shavings and all the junk that goes with it, you know, before they actually look into landscaping. And the other thing that they've considered doing is, that we're looking at is, they now, come into the common area on the west side of the front entrance through a gate down at the end, which means they're no longer driving their lawnmowers between people's homes. Okay, and on the other side, they're going to do that, but what they have to do is what they have proposed, and we think it's a good idea. We already talked to some of the owners there, and they seem pleased with it. That they don't have to listen to lawnmowers roaring between their homes anymore. One of them said, yeah, well, because their blades are running and they drag weeds and stuff in with them to take root. But doing a modification to the fence at the entrance on the exit side, the exit lane, so that they'll have like a gate so they can drive their equipment in through there and not bother the people in their homes.
Yeah, you'll see the one picture where it shows the gap in the.
Yeah, right here.
Where's that again?
That's on the east side of the entrance, where the pond is.
Exit side.
We looked at the front area about whether you could put a gate there, but the land is too steep, the ground is too steep at the entrance. So they cannot get the equipment in safely, it would just come in and tumble and they wind up with a pond.
There's nothing. Oh, so this is like a solid hedge essentially, but the access is area where having to drive through lawns with lawnmowers and get in there, into the back. So this provides easier access.
Yes.
And it would be a lock gate, I mean, it won't be a gate anybody can walk into.
Yeah, this has been, this particular issue has been talked about for some time. And that looked like probably the best location, safety-wise for the mowers. And it doesn't impede upon the residents there. Okay? Okay, so
We have the tree trimming thing to look at, right?
no, tree trimming
There's
is
a
part.
budget here. There's, you know, this is, tree care proposal, tree
Yeah.
trimming option 1, 2, 3, and 4.
I put that in for you guys because you guys were discussing tree trimming, so I just put it in there.
Okay,
Yeah, we've already talked about that, so.
but
it's under the cost is under the threshold of what can be approved by the president, so it's just a matter of getting the tree trimming done. We wanted to get it done sooner rather than later because with hurricane season
Right.
coming up, let's hurry up and get.
So we're gonna go ahead with this then?
Yes, yep.
Okay. And what they're gonna be doing is trimming branches at the entrance that overhang the, entrance and exit. And they're gonna be taking back some of the branches on both sides that are overhanging the roofs of the properties of the two owners who live on each side, on the exit side and the entrance side. And those are branches that are coming off common area trees, so the community has to bring those down. And they're gonna be cutting back about 25 to 30% of the branches that are being trimmed. They can't do more, because the arborist explained that if they trim more than 30% of any branch, it actually kills the branch. It makes the tree unsafe.
Yep, so hopefully the weather holds out for tomorrow and they get done what they need to get done. You know, we've even got that one branch in the exit lane, you know, dangling. Yeah, that one concerns me. Yep. Well, hopefully tomorrow they'll be done. Okay, so this is kind of a tough one. Joe Gallagher has done a great job with the Architecture Control Board. However, he's lately decided to attack the board and access management, oftentimes based on misleading information. And I don't think the board can no longer tolerate this constant barrage of misleading Facebook posts. And Joe has also created a new Facebook page that is, quote, the group they don't want you to join. Quote, this will be an unfettered Facebook page that will do nothing in the best interest of Regency Hills, just their own agenda of what they're trying to accomplish, whatever that is. It was meant to destroy the integrity of the board and management company. Here's a recent post by Joe Gallagher. This was based on a post that Sue Cordova made, and he said, Sue, thank you for all you have done for our community. This is a PSA for homeowners in this community. Do not join a committee with the current board of directors and management company. PM me if you need more information. And Sue's post, it's interesting, she posted, I have to say I'm very disappointed with access management, but more so with our board members. After volunteering and serving on many boards for the past almost 10 years, I find out from an emailed community newsletter, the board I am currently serving on is disbanded. Well, it wasn't disbanded, it was suspended. And picking up the phone and calling the 3 members of the board would have been a professional and polite thing to do. Not looking for thanks, but common courtesy and respect. And I do agree with some of that, but I also wanted to point out the fact that Joe was the fine committee chairperson. He could have notified the other people in the fine committee what happened, and he took no action, huh?
And why it happened.
And why it happened. And it's important to note that the fine committee was constituted without the board's approval, knowledge, any of that. It was just done, and that was it. And that's not how we're gonna be doing business. So, Joe, I appreciate all the work that you've done in the past. I always commented about what a great job you did, but unfortunately, we're not gonna tolerate that kind of behavior. So I'll make a motion to go ahead and remove Joe as the chair of the Architecture Control Board.
Motion.
Okay?
All in favor?
Aye.
So question, So
Yep.
So the members of the architectural control board will, so Joe will still be on the board, he just won't be the chairperson.
No, he won't be on the board at all.
Okay.
And then,
I think you need to amend your motion.
oh, okay, so removing Joe from the board, architecture control board committee is my motion. All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Okay,
Motion carries.
and fortunately, is Robert here?
I don't know, Mr. Medina? No, he was coming back from Fort Myers.
Oh, okay. Fortunately, we had a recommendation for Robert Medina to join the Architecture Control Board. And, right here. So he will, join that spot. And I'd like to thank Robert for his interest in supporting Regency Hills. And, Jack, if you'd like to nominate Robert to the board?
Yeah, I would like to nominate Mr. Robert Medina to the board. He's an owner in the community, he's Hispanic, he's a contractor. So he knows all about homes and architecture and all that, so I think he's a good addition.
Excellent.
Do I have a second on that?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
And then I'd also like to follow up, and nominate Jack Sweeney as the ACB chair.
Okay. Thanks nominating Jack as the chair. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
All right.
Motion carries.
Thank you. So the new, Architecture Control Board will consist of Jack Sweeney as the chair, Margaret's still sticking around, helping us out, and, Robert. So, congratulations and thanks. And we're also looking at, taking the architecture, guidelines and creating an index. Do you want to talk about any of that?
So, Mike's suggestion, he, in keeping with the charter for the Architectural Control Board, which is the same thing as the Architectural Review Committee, except in the declarations and restrictions, it's specified as the Architectural Control Board, to build an index for it. I've had several owners, people that near me comment that they look for stuff and they sometimes don't find what they're looking for, maybe they're not looking well. But Mike asked me to put an index together, so when we, figure out where we're gonna add the garage door to the guidelines, I'll be submitting a draft index. It's basically gonna be simple, and the idea is to have it in keeping with the, charter that was adopted last month. And, we're gonna start submitting, regular written reports every month as opposed to verbal reports, so that there will be a written record of what the Architectural Control Board does every month, so anybody can go on that to kind of see what's getting done. It's true that on the ARC tracker, you can actually input a property address and see what requests have been submitted or not submitted. But, the idea is to have monthly reports of what's going on, to put them on that, so owners can go there and just see what's being done on a monthly basis.
And we will also solicit input from the community on any updates, changes, improvements to the, architecture guidelines.
Yeah.
With, the thought of keeping with the, traditional schedule of having the new guidelines come out in September, which isn't far away. Okay.
Go ahead and
Yep. So the board has been looking to transfer all IT-related support under the board's purview. Joe, where do we stand with the, domain transfer?
Oh, I'm just here as a homeowner, so I don't have any comment. I'll speak about it if you want
Yeah, yeah.
during the homeowner forum, but I'm just here as a homeowner, so I don't know what you want me to say.
Well, we've asked you.
But
about
you're engaging in a homeowner who's just sitting here just listening, so I have nothing to say at this point.
Okay.
Regency Village resume on the Facebook page.
Okay, so, wanted to talk a little bit more about, some of the things that we've seen out on the Facebook page. You know, I don't understand where all the hatred and, the criticism, I mean, yeah, if we're doing something wrong, that's fine, but just because we don't do it the way that you think it should be done, certainly doesn't qualify. And one of the things that pointed that out, but one of the other things that I'd like to point out is this was a Facebook post from Darlene Niemiec, and her post says, an approved ACP charter has been posted to the Access Management website. Currently, your volunteer ACB members are now expected to make periodic inspections of the community. Don't we pay a company to do that? Nothing like putting a target on those volunteers' backs. So I wanted to point out the fact that out of the architectural guidelines, it states the existing for number 4, final inspection, the ACB shall have the right to enter upon and inspect any property at any time before, during, or after the completion of work for which approval has been granted. So we didn't add any additional responsibility onto the ACB with that charter. And honestly, Darlene was one of the people that chose to chastise the suspending the fine committee. But honestly, that would be a bigger target on the backs of your neighbors that are now approving money out of your pocket. So, and I also wanted to point out that the cost for processing violations by the management company or the attorney can be passed along to the homeowner. It's a
To the homeowner that incurs the violation.
Right. Yep. So
Not
it-
the community at large.
Right, so that's just a matter of, you know, we don't need a fine committee to make things happen. It can still be done through other means.
If I could add, this has been consulted with the attorney, and we looked at it very carefully, and got an opinion from him. And, the fine committee, the way it was set up, it was done illegally. If a fine had been assessed by that committee, an owner with a good lawyer could have brought a lawsuit against the community. And even if that lawsuit is dismissed, the community still would have incurred legal costs. And no offense intended, but I think there was an obligation or responsibility on the part of the fine committee chair, it was Mr. Gallagher, to at least check with the board beforehand about the constitution of that committee, so something could have been inserted in minutes at a board meeting and legally and properly approved. Under Article 6, I think, of the declarations and restrictions, it talks about the Architectural Control Board, and it says that the board has the authority to appoint and remove members of that board, but when there's an absence on the Architectural Control Board, the majority of the Architectural Control Board can fill that slot with someone. But there's nothing in the declarations and covenants about the fines committee, okay? And it doesn't follow logically that what applies to the ACB in terms of appointing members to the committee by part of the majority of the committee, if a member or new one's needed, because these are three-person committee, it doesn't follow logically that it's legal for somebody who's chair of the fine committee to appoint members of that committee without checking first with the board, at least giving the board the required information so we can make sure it's done legally. Under tighter HOA and condominium laws that are in effect now, and we've been going to seminars and workshops and learning about how it works. We have to be very careful what we do, okay, because somebody who's sharp can sue us if we make a wrong step. I have to add also that I think personally that fines committee was not particularly effective. In the time that I was a member of the committee, more fines were denied than were approved. Some owners felt that they were singled out particularly for fines, and one owner in particular got hit with up to $1,000 in fines, and that was a drawn-out process that everybody who attends meetings regularly witnessed the kinds of chaos and confrontation that went on for months and months and months in these meetings. It's not what this community is about. There was no dissolution of the committee. We simply, when we realized that there was a legal issue at stake, and it was consulted with the attorney, okay, we decided to suspend it while the whole process was reviewed. Also, as to whether a fines committee is actually needed, because it pits some owners against others. Okay, if you're a member of the fine committee and you're an owner, and you find somebody, you can. It can create hard feelings between owners, and in fact, that's what happened in some instances, and we're trying to avoid that. I've lived in Regency Hills for 15 years, okay? And I've never, in my whole life that I've lived in Regency Hills, seen firsthand the kind of anger and disinformation and things that have been done and said in meetings and are still being done and said, on the Facebook page. I'm gonna interject something here. About a week and a half ago, I received a string of anonymous text messages from somebody who claimed to live in Hartwood Reserve. And the number of those anonymous text messages were sent from, and I screenshotted all the texts. The number that those anonymous text messages came from is the same telephone number that's associated with the new Facebook page that Mike was talking about. And I'm asking myself, why, I asked the person, well, who are you? So you're from Hartwood Reserve, what's your name? No, my name doesn't matter. And then I got lectured. And then my question then is, that's infantile. Okay? It's not responsible adult behavior. If you got something to say to me, say it to my face. You can say it to anybody on the board. That's infantile behavior. I know exactly who sent the messages, because I know that individual's speech patterns and his writing patterns. But, why? What's the purpose of it? It doesn't add anything positive to the community. It doesn't help solve problems. It just creates dissent. Okay? And it's deliberate, and there's no reason for it. And Regency Hills was never like that until this individual started doing this kind of stuff. And it goes back now almost 4 years, because I'm not the only owner who's received anonymous text messages.
Okay, and then the last thing I want to
And
talk
I got
about.
the screenshots for anyone who wants to see.
Last thing I want to talk
Go
about,
see it.
Sue Cordova had
Talk about
posted
me.
a comment about diversity. And I just wanted to make it clear that the first person I contacted after we had the president and then the vice president quit the board in April of 2024, the first person I contacted was Sue Cordova. And honestly, I wanted to get a woman on the board. And then she wasn't ready to come back to the board at that time. And I talked to Karen Phillips to see if she might be interested. But her schedule doesn't allow it. So I don't want people to get the impression that we're, as somebody commented, a bunch of old white men with gray hair. We've looked that way, we've tried to do that. And we just unfortunately haven't had success in the world. Huh? You got a ways to go. So, anyway, that's what I've got with that part there.
That is the end of new business. We move along to the open forum.
Do you have anything you can add, or?
So the open forum is for
Agenda items, 3 minutes for agenda items.
Hi, Mike Lapis, 4500 Barrister Drive. So, I'm sure you guys have done this. So, you've mentioned the lights are halogen, streetlights.
Probably, right, or high pressure sodium, something like
Sodium,
that. I'm not sure which they would be, but they're not.
So, why hasn't anybody considered going to a LED?
So it's because, we can ask SECO about that, but we essentially lease, the community leases the poles from them. So we don't own them, we are paying for them, and, they're increasing that cost by 6-7%. But I totally understand LED would be the way that we should go. If we were to replace the poles in general, that would be the way that we would go. But in terms of modifying them, we need to talk to SECO about that and see if we can get them upgraded or the bulbs changed out, modified, what have you.
Is Seago the only way to modify the bulbs? You can't
It's-
send that out for bid?
So it's their pole, essentially, it's their light pole. So that's, we would need to ask them about that. And that's something we definitely do. It's a good point. Yeah.
And I was one that got random, what were they called? Ghost phone? Is that what it's called?
Oh, he screenshotted,
Yeah.
yeah, you did the same.
I did the same. A few years back, I got some weird text messages. And when I asked the same question, who is this, they would not tell.
Anyone else?
Really quickly, regarding the trees, when they get cut, you're gonna include the stumps on that as well?
Yep.
Okay. So,
Move around.
that's about
I have a question, so going back to SECO, I don't know how you properly say it. So you said we have 63 lamps in the community and we're going to turn off a few of them. If it turns out that that is the way we're gonna go, are we gonna remove the lamp posts that we're turning off, or are we just gonna have a lamp post there with no light?
So what I'm mostly interested in here is, I would like to remove them.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we would put that up for a vote. It'd be
Mhm.
ridiculous just to have a bunch of
Right.
turned off light posts. But I wanna understand the costs, right? If there was a cost to remove it, in my opinion, right, if we're leasing this and we don't wanna lease it anymore, alright, well, take it out.
Right.
I don't think we should have a cost associated with that, but I'm not sure how this works with CECO. We need to look into it a little bit more. The real concern that we have as a board is in keeping the HOA dues the same, or, reducing if at all possible. And ultimately, this is gonna be a 600% increase that is coming from CECO for this kind of community lighting. So the villages has tens of thousands of these lamps, and there's a couple good articles out there on some of the issues that they're going through right now with this exact same increase.
What do we pay?
Yeah.
So
How much
so
do
the
we pay?
cost that we had previously budgeted was for roughly $1,200 a month, I think. We can ask Lenny next month when he's back. It's increased to where it's now costing approximately $3,500 a month. It's gonna go up again, so it'll be, yeah.
Yeah,
that's nuts.
it is nuts.
And so that's a cost.
Problem is why they looked into this 2 years ago.
Yeah, so there are some really good articles, we did a little bit of research, I highly recommend you go and look at the same articles that we read about. The justification is essentially that, from what I've gathered, that they underestimated the amount that long-term maintenance was gonna cost them these things
Mhm.
early on. And, now that they have a ton of them out there, especially after the last couple of hurricanes, which did significant damage to certain portions of bit underwater, you could say, on that program of theirs. So they have had to increase costs. I don't know that it's justified to increase by 600%. I would argue no. But it's something that we have to act on now.
I mean, I think the neighborhood is pretty dark now, so I'm concerned about how much darker it's gonna get, cause there are people who walk at night, or if there's a loose
Yeah.
dog, you know, or whatever, you don't see them.
Yeah. Another proposal that's been brought up, I don't know how much time we have, but another proposal that came up was offering, or putting up to a vote that homeowners would allow, or would be interested in having smaller lamps in their front yards,
Light posts.
which is something that we've seen in other neighborhoods. That at least provide more light at the intersections. She doesn't like it.
No, I don't like,
There's a no vote for her.
I'll carry a flashlight, I guess.
Is there anybody at the state level that we should approach and say, something stinks here? Who do we contact to investigate the utilities?
I don't have an answer for that.
I think that's, I don't know how anybody can have a 600% increase, just like, I'm sorry, we have to.
They're raising,
They're
there's.
doing it for
they're-
all communities. And
Well, I know,
commercial
and I would
businesses.
imagine that, so the state should probably be notified and say, can you guys look into this and see if it's justified?
Well, I think there's a commission that they have to go before and present that information and then get approval from them, that they were approved for the increases.
Yeah, in California, it was called a PUC. I don't know what it's called here, but, is Seco privately owned?
It's a cooperative.
Oh,
I don't know if your residential rates are kind of, but we're being more careful about conserving power in my home, and our rates have still been up. This month's bill was almost $500, and last year it was like $100 less.
Mike?
Mike Shirley, 2710 Valiant. A few things. One, did we get second opinions on the arborists for removing trees?
Did we get second opinions
On the trees needing to be removed? Was that validated?
No, we went with the arborist that Yellowstone has. But the guy that came out yesterday from Floralon, seemed to be agreeing of which trees needed to be taken down.
But we can ask them.
Yeah.
They don't know.
It seems like an independent arborist should be asked for an opinion,
Okay.
but not one that attached to a law.
This arborist that came with Yellowstone, he's not a Yellowstone employee. He's got his own, he's an independent arborist, and actually the budget that he submitted for trimming the trees is very reasonable. I think
Well, Yellowstone submitted.
the budget that Yellowstone submitted for this arborist to do the trimming is $1,575 for the amount of trimming they're gonna be doing. That's not a bad price. I've had trees trimmed in my house.
I'm more concerned about
The removals, yeah. No, that's a good point. And, yeah, we can do that.
So, next, are you gonna be sending out the renderings for the front entrance? I know I would, and I'm sure other residents would like to see what's being
Yeah, we can do
proposed
that.
and have a voice.
Yeah, that'd be cool. I mean, nothing's been budgeted or proposed or anything like that. When they came out, when Yellowstone came out, Mike and I went around with them, they brought, with them a woman who designs these things, and she took pictures of everything and the condition that it's in, and then she went back and she did like a Photoshop rendering of what it could look like, and in that, there's different options that a person can consider. They're nice looking renderings, will
Yeah,
it be
that's-
like that in the real world? I don't know, but yeah, sure. I mean, yeah, everybody in the community should have that.
yeah.
And then, finally, I wanted to address that whole open house and the gate thing. When we went with Envira many years ago, I remember being told, if you were having a group of people over, you could put something like generic party onto your guest list. So Brenda says, I'm going to the party at your address. Mike, you mentioned like the semi-annual garage sales we have. I look at that different. My opinion there is like, that's a whole neighborhood activity. And an open house, that's a private thing benefiting only one person. Why not just have them say, put open house in your Envira list, put a sign up next to the call box that says, push the button, tell me going to an open house at this address.
That's a good idea.
I think having it just open for that reason is wrong.
So to ask a question on that, right? If there's a sign at the speaker box that says, you wanna go, if you're going to the open house, tell the virtual guard you're going to the open house and they'll open the gate. What's the difference between that and just having the gate open?
Picture of the driver and the license plate stopped at the gate.
You get the picture, the license, the video camera should capture the.
Not the driver, not when they're driving 30 miles an hour into the gate.
Okay.
Well, you get the license,
You get a license plate, but you're not gonna capture the driver's face. Very well.
No.
Tinted windows or something
well,
like
with
that.
some of the tinted windows, yeah, you can't see in those cars anyway.
So, it is possible for Vera to put on to what's called the community list, which is like the overarching list, open house for that day. But, and I really don't think that you're gonna get many drive-bys, you know, in my opinion.
Yeah, you may not.
Where we are. And I mean, I personally agree with you that something that's benefiting a single house should be handled a little bit differently than something that's benefiting the overall community, which is something like a garage sale. So I don't know how we best handle that, but.
Yeah, we can certainly talk about whether we wanna have or authorize open houses and
Right.
just simply they have to.
So let's say that we have 10 houses to sell in a month, on 10 different days, right? I'm gonna leave the gates open for 10 different days in a month. I would say no, you know, personally.
And I will say, Hunter's Run across the street from us, I've seen where there's been open house signs out in front of their property and their gates were open at that time. So it's not like we're the only, somebody commented about, you know, we're the only ones doing that. That's not true. And also keep in mind, Envera sends out a notice to us every year for Thanksgiving, Christmas, and stuff like that, Easter, and saying, oh, you know, these are heavy days, heavy traffic days.
Yeah, that's
Do
good
you,
they're
do you want
understaffed.
us to just open your gates for that time? And we always say no to that. So.
We say no to the open house.
Well, I think, you know, to Mike's point, to Elliot's point, we need to come up with a plan, whatever the plan is gonna be consistent.
Not this right.
Sure. Whether we make a decision that for open houses or whatever the event is. Need to.
There needs to be policy.
We need to consider what that's gonna be, so when we get requests, that open house request came, I don't know, the evening before the open house or the morning of,
Yeah.
a couple hours before the open house, I don't know what it was. So we have a plan. We execute that thing every time.
Okay. Policy.
So we'll figure out going forward what the plan will be, and we'll let you know at a future meeting.
Thank you.
I have a question about, common ground sidewalk repairs. Are you talking about by the pool?
Yes.
That's it, right?
The,
Okay.
the pool, the sidewalks leading up to the, entrance,
Okay.
the pedestrian gates there, all that.
Okay.
Those are the ones that we marked up.
The sidewalks all around the pool area, some of them were buckled, cracked, sticking up at different levels. Previously, some of them were ground down
Mhm.
to make them smooth again, to, you know, minimize the risk of people tripping.
Okay.
But, some of them are so broken, like there's one right there at the corner, where Valiant connects with the pool. There's an oak tree there that has buckled the sidewalk, and the sidewalk is, where it's cracked like in 4 or 5 areas, it's like this much higher than the rest of the sidewalk. And that's a safety risk, it's a liability for the community if somebody hurts themselves there. So that's what we're talking about, all around that area where people gather.
So could I just say, I know we're supposed to be talking about things that are on the agenda, but obviously if I wanna bring something up that's not on the agenda, can I just bring it up quickly?
No.
No?
Our guidelines are, it has to be on the agenda.
Okay.
However, you know, you can send it through via request through, Vantica, and we can certainly take it under
Okay.
consideration.
Couple more. So, open house is usually like 2 hours,
Yep.
so do they?
12 to 2.
Is that usually then gates at 12 o'clock open and 2 o'clock they close? So
Yep.
it's a 2-hour window,
Yep.
so they're not open all day?
No.
Okay. And why is it you can't talk about random stuff? You were doing it for a while, and then now it's back to only on the agenda.
Because we needed to make that change.
Okay.
Any more? Okay. Doesn't seem to be any more owners for open forum, so, the next meeting date is July 31st at 7. The room is to be determined, and we are ready for adjournment, gentlemen.
Okay, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Eddie, you wait, and do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, Elliot, second, all in favor?
Well done, nice. Nice.
Yeah. Thank you.
I gotta love my